Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scary Stories We Tell. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
And I'm Jess. I thought you had a different intro for this because I forgot which segment we were doing for a second.
We're here talking on Scary Stories We Tell about haunted states, something that we started a long time ago. What, like 2020 in the barren wasteland.
That's why I couldn't remember the intro for this particular one.
But speaking of on the fly, the only way to get to Hawaii is by plane or boat because it's not part of the contiguous United States or the continental United States. It is in the middle of the ocean. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I have not, regrettably.
Me either.
I really, really want to go. It's one destination that like my Nana has always wanted to go, like my entire life. And I've periodically looked at like plane tickets and stuff to Hawaii, and whoo, boy, they are expensive. And also it is expensive to stay there. Because everywhere, everywhere's beautiful. There's no bad part of Hawaii, right?
Well, it's also, it's the destination for American tourists to go somewhere that is not contiguous to the United States.
Yeah, it feels like it's America, but it's not America.
Right, exactly. I guess kind of like Alaska. I could speak to Alaska more than I can Hawaii because I've been to Alaska and it was fine. Mm-hmm. We went fishing, not the thing that I would have chose to do, but we did it anyways.
But in Alaska, you can do and see a lot of things in Alaska. I'm not saying like Alaska is beautiful. I've never been there, but obviously pictures, movies, television, all that. It is beautiful, absolutely, the wilderness and everything. But when it comes down to it, in most of the continental United States, you can see a lot of the types of wilderness and animals and things to do in Alaska in various parts of the United States, in a lot of parts of the United States. But you can't go surfing and see volcanoes and,
Well, and you also can't, you can't go to the jungle.
Yeah, you can't go to the jungle. You can't do all of that stuff anywhere other than or in many places.
I think you can only do it in Hawaii and Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Puerto Rico's not a state.
I would go to the jungle.
Yeah. Hawaii, as far as I'm concerned, like you mentioned it, for beaches is obviously very popular, but it's, I believe, the only naturally occurring jungle in the United States, because I don't think there's any jungles in mainland, at least not in, best I can tell. Again, that's why Puerto Rico and Hawaii are kind of, again, I would rather go to Puerto Rico than Hawaii personally, because it's a little cheaper.
Right.
Because like you said, Hawaii it's a destination. Like it is. Like that's, my family has never been. We've been plenty of other places, but Hawaii never made the list because I guess you just go and sit on the beach, which like now as an adult seems perfectly fine.
That seems fantastic.
There was a time in my life where that did not sound interesting, but like now it does.
I went to the beach a few times, like the beach in Florida a few times when I was a kid, and I did really like it. But yeah, like I wasn't about to stay like every day on the beach. Like one day on the beach was great, but I still wanted to go out and do all the things and see all the stuff. Now, oh my God, just like I would set up a tent on the beach and you can like come get me in a week. That's fine.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And that's, my lovely wife wants to go to Hawaii at some point, and I did not for the longest time, but I kind of think I do now. So yeah.
Hey, maybe the plane tickets aren't as expensive these days.
I would like to believe that, but I don't think that that's the case.
No, everything is expensive.
Yeah. But Hawaii has the distinction of not only being an island state, but also it's the final state in the Union.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, like you mentioned, it has also volcanoes. So it is made up of several islands, including Hawaii, Maui, Oahu, Kauai, Molokai, Lanai, Niihau, and Kahoolawe, excuse me. And those are the major islands. That's where you can go and stay for the most part. At least I think most of those places. Again, I haven't been to Hawaii, but I know that the big island, that's Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the mainland.
Yeah.
As they were.
Yeah. So outside of the fact that we have not been to Hawaii, you're not here to listen to us wax poetically about the history of Hawaii. You're here to listen to us talk about weird things in the state of Hawaii, a state that, like you mentioned, kind of is distinctly cultural in a way that a lot of states in our country are not. It has a
Yes.
very distinct culture, a very distinct group of people, the Hawaiian indigenous population.
Mhm.
These are people that were there long before Cook came and
Well, yeah.
discovered them. So,
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. That's kind of the thing, right? Like our whole, Hawaii is the only way to get there is by boat and by plane. And way back in the day when the main continental United States was being, taken over, Hawaii was still going on as it was for a time anyway. But they've had the ability to remain more indigenous and native than the rest of the United States has. And so I think that definitely attributes to why it does feel like a place that's not really, connected to the states when we think about them. Which is, a bummer because before going into this episode, I honestly didn't know about any Hawaiian cryptids or legends or anything beyond that. So one of the ones that I found are ones that you might find in the jungle if you happen to venture out at night, which I would not recommend, are the night marchers, which I guess are one of the more famous cryptids on the island. So they are said to be spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors who still roam the islands and march in their own, I guess, ghostly procession. They're said to be heard at night, and what you hear if you find them are the sounds of drums and chanting. And sometimes, if you see them, you're going to see them carrying weapons and torches. So according to the legend, if you see the night marchers, you most certainly should not look them directly in the eye, or they will take your soul. So these are some not fucking around spirits we got going on here. So the night marchers are said to be living in the jungle where they were said to be settled back when they were when there were warriors protecting the island. So the whole idea is that, yes, they will take your soul because they are still out there protecting the island from foreign invaders.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta assume that there are these kinds of myths in a lot of places like this, right?
Oh, God, yeah, I would assume, yeah.
Just to speak broadly about the idea that there is a force coming up from the earth, possibly, or supernaturally here, that is protecting the land, has a tie to the land. I mean, it's very romantic. It really is. Like, that's such a romantic notion. Oh my God, the spirits of the warriors are still here protecting us from foreign invaders, like you said. I mean,
right.
I wonder, I've got to wonder how many of these kinds of myths exist out in the world in other places where indigenous people, which is plenty of places, where indigenous people have settled. And then, outsiders not indigenous to the land have come. And if there have been these similar stories of, spirits in the woods who are not vengeful per se, but they're definitely, they're benevolent, maybe.
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going out of their way to hurt people.
Yeah, I think it gets a benevolent, for the people. They're more of a protection myth. They're not overtly out to get you. They're not spirits that were set on revenge, right? They're protectors. If you try and challenge them, then they are warriors and they will fight you. But I would say that yes, this is probably a myth that runs pretty parallel in a lot of cultures across the world. With the sheer amount of colonialism and conquering that has happened since the dawn of time.
Well, I wonder if, again, somewhere that I'm kind of more or less uniquely tied to is there's got to be similar stories like this in India.
Oh gosh,
the warriors protecting the land from, again, the outside influences. Because, as it were, Hawaii is discovered by James Cook in the 1700s. And he is, well, what is he? He's definitely, he's not from England or anything. So it's it's that same thing where it's like, I don't want to point fingers at one group of people, but it is one group of people. And I wonder how many of these kinds of stories come from, like you mentioned, the tradition of imperialism by way of the Brits. or imperialism slash colonialism. I like the story though. Look them in the eyes and they steal your soul. Like that's good, right? I mean, again, it's like very romantic.
It's like, you don't fuck with them.
So are these a common sighting? Are they seen often?
So they are, like I said, they're one of the more well-known ones. They have been recorded more often. I mean, like, I tried to find some examples recently and I couldn't really find anything much past like the 80s. So I don't know how much cultural influence that, has in, just the world that we kind of lived in the 80s, where there was a lot of, panic around a lot of weird things. But these typically are the more known and more famous ones. There are no reports of people whose souls have been stolen, unfortunately.
I mean, is there a way for you to know if your soul
Those are locked
stolen?
in the X-Files somewhere.
I mean, how would one know? That's the question I have.
I feel like you would feel it. I mean, if you have a soul, I feel like you'd feel it go away. Like there'd be an emptiness, a very deep emptiness. I think so.
I want to agree, but I don't know. Like the whole idea behind a soul in my mind is very wishy-washy,
right? Like what
is it a religious thing? Is it inherently religious?
I don't think it's inherently. I mean, I don't think it is inherently religious. I think that if you go back in history and recorded history, you'll see a lot of examples of things that like would be interpreted as a soul, but they are translated as reason and will and things like that. And so I think the way that we hear soul, the typical way, like as a Westerner in America, and you hear soul, you probably associate it with, Christianity, right? Like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, they say your immortal soul.
Right. But you can like look at like Greek mythology and stuff like that. And there's, like your soul goes into the underworld effectively, with Hades. Like it's an essence of you that is now just poof.
Well, think about something like Egypt, right? You're taken across the sky in the chariot. Like your soul is taken away. Like you said, I mean, very similar to Greek, Roman, ancient civilizations always had an answer for what happens after we die. Because that is often how the answer to what is a soul comes from, is that discussion of what happens after we die. Because I guess in a lot of assumptions in Christianity, or maybe this is the way people think about it now, your soul is the thing that's at the wheel here.
Yes. Yeah. The soul is what makes you. Like it's the ultimate you. It's and when you think about it, what makes a soul, a lot of people or a lot of examples pointed into like that human beings can reason and have willpower and have the ability to like love and be discerning, whereas like animals don't have souls, allegedly, if we're talking about Christianity, right? Animals do not have souls. And the reasoning behind that typically is that they don't, they act purely on instinct. They don't have concern for the greater the greater humanity or the greater well-being of their species as a whole. We as human beings have the capability of understanding that our actions and who we are as people affect, everyone around us and even further than that. So I think, a soul, as it were, is not inherently religious. I think it's just inherently the capability of being able to care and deeply and complexly. I think that's the more important part, right? The complexity of it, that you have the ability to understand a lot of good with the bad and a lot of bad with the good and still go on as a person.
Well, it's self-consciousness, right? Like being a soul, a soul in a lot of ways is tied to the discussion about self-consciousness and how and being self-aware and, pure consciousness. I mean, is a concept in Hinduism. I mean, the term Atman is the Hindu word for self, which more or less translates to soul as well. And I mean, again, Western culture being what it is one thing, but Eastern philosophies like Hinduism and Jainism and a lot of, obviously Buddhism deal with, I think, the soul in a much more interesting way, in a way that feels more akin to like you said, a complex idea of what this is. And it's not just this. And again, I'm not dragging Christianity as goo baby talk, but the practicers of Christianity now that are louder than the others are goo baby talking it, because they don't.
Yeah, it's a very black and white system.
Yeah,
they see through.
And I don't think that, and I clearly know you would agree that this is not black and white. That doesn't even matter in this conversation. Like good and bad is irrelevant. It's about the ability to understand, I guess, the consequences of your actions and how that might affect you and how it affects the world around you. And how do you make those decisions? And how do you kind of square yourself away with the decisions that you've made as well? Like, because again, having a soul means, one thing, but then like to be selfless is to like devote your soul to something higher than even it. So again, it's like what's the question here is like, do you live a life of selflessness to elevate that, or do you live to the best of your own abilities? And again, it's like, that's a question in and of itself. But again, Christianity claims that you are meant to be open and loving and welcoming.
Sure.
I mean, again, if not perverted by human beings, that is the message. But that message comes from human beings as well. I mean, again, but like it's a human tenet that we treat one another a certain way. The golden rule. I mean, it's fucking.
Do unto others as you would to you.
Right.
Yes.
It's fucking stupid, but it's true. Like it's 100% true. And again, like it goes back to the idea of a soul. Like what does that mean to you? I'm curious. Now that we're on this topic.
A soul? Oh boy.
We're getting deep. A lot deeper than I think either one of us would have thought about some
Hawaiian
dudes.
night marchers to what does it mean to me to have a soul? I think, honestly, having a soul to me comes down to experience, to the human ability to have experience. And by that, I mean the experience of connecting with like other people, connecting with music, connecting with food, connecting with entertainment, connecting with, deep seated emotions, in yourself and in other people. And I think the more that you allow yourself to be open to any experience, obviously some experiences, not necessary, but if you are opening yourself to the ability to experience life to the fullest, I think that is really like what creates a soul, not creates a soul, but what builds a soul and keeps a soul going is the ability to just connect fully with every aspect of your being, to a person or a pet or a piece of music or a fucking cloud in the sky. Like just the ability to see those things. And I think that's what it is, that was soul. What about you?
I mean, I think I agree with you in a lot of ways, obviously. I mean, they always, they being people like us, the good book always says that, we're spiritual beings on we're spiritual bodies with an earthly experience, something to that effect. And I'm inclined to agree because I think, again, I don't know if there is a literal soul. I don't know. Like, I know that there have been experiments done when someone dies, their body is lighter right after they die, as if something has left the body.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Like, that's not me making it up to be, cutesy. Like, that's a thing that happened. And those were scientific experiments that were being done to answer the question of, do we have a soul? So it's not about literal souls, I think, in my mind. I think it's more like kind of what you're getting at, where I think that to have a soul means to be present, to be to be there in the moment. And like you said, to be able to enjoy things and parts of life that are, again, like, we know that animals have a consciousness. We don't know what their ability to comprehend things is. And so we have a consciousness and we are able to comprehend the things that we can see and do in a way that makes sense to us. And I mean, again, that's why when we see UFOs or ghosts or things, it's like, well, maybe we just can't comprehend it. And I think that comes back to what souls are. I think souls are what we are able to comprehend and put through our complex machine of our brains. And it's the thing that drives all the decisions that we make, all the inferences that we have, all the observations that we're looking at, anything. That's our soul is just, it's like a big rat's nest of experiences. and it's a cord that allows something to come in, and then it goes, and it's all taped together, and there's all these different cords that it changes through, and then it comes out the other end to something else. That thing that it goes through is our soul. It's the distillation of our being into something, again, tangible or not is unimportant, but if you said, is my soul my personality, I would say it might be kind of the same thing. Like who I am at my core, right?
Yeah. Like you're absolute, like these are the things that I exist for.
Right. My soul is, in a lot of ways, when people talk about their id, that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's like the person that you are at the core of it all is your soul. And, Siren Call of Hungry Ghosts raised the question of, are we just coming back souls that have done this before over and over again, trying to learn something, trying to get better at something, trying to spread the message of whatever? Like, is that what we're doing here? I don't know, maybe. But part of me would like to believe if there are souls, then they're able to, when we have a loss of corporeal form, that the soul can leave and go into the ether and come back. And I genuinely believe that, as I assume you do as well.
Yeah. And I also don't believe, I don't believe in the soulless idea, right? Because I think that like a soul, as we're talking about it, does not necessarily have to be a good thing to exist. I think that souls exist in both good and bad and limbo areas, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, on paper, bad person, quote unquote, someone could label as a soulless human being. But I don't think that that's the case. I think that their soul just feeds on a different set of things that's not. And look, if you want to even push that a step further about talking about the whole idea of like the soul goes off into the ether and then comes back, that explains a whole lot as to why the universe energy, gets really like bogged down, right? And why like bad things continue to happen, because those souls are also going back into either the ether of the universe and combating like the good vibes, if you will, of the universe, or they're going back into people, into new people to be, whatever version of that it's going to be. So,
the question I have is like you said, taking it a step further, was someone like John Wayne Gacy or Jeffrey Dahmer a serial killer who did terrible things? Were they a soulless person? I agree with you. I don't think they are. I think their soul just fed on different shit, and that's terrifying. Right. Like what I need in my daily basis is not the murder of children or the consumption of corpses. And but clearly that's the motivation for someone, because those people have done those things. And it's interesting because, again, I think inherently those souls are just further back on the timeline than others. You know what I mean? Like they haven't come to the maturation point yet of, hey, by the way, it's not okay to drill holes in people's heads and pour hot water in there. Like, no. I shouldn't have to say that out loud, but yet we do, because in a time and place that we live in, someone did that. Thankfully, only one person, best we can tell, but there are sometimes 25 to 50 serial killers operating in the United States at any one time.
Exactly. Okay. It just plays in my head.
Right.
Occasionally when I'm walking around outside.
But that's the thing. I mean, the way I view it is similar to what you said. Like, they haven't reached a maturation point yet.
Like, I'm equating like a soul and passion. Like, passion is a thing that I definitely equate soul with. And passion is not always a good thing. Passion can be a really fantastic thing, and passion can be a really destructive thing. And I think that goes, it's the balance of the universe of like, and that's why I think things like, the idea of like a God and heaven and hell, or name just the finalization of like, you are either good or you are bad, just doesn't compute with me. And the idea of something being able to like, have the power of good no matter what doesn't compute with me, because we do live in a world where bad shit continuously happens. New bad shit happens every day. The same shit happens every day continuously. And I think it makes more sense if you think about it, because souls are being, kind of if we're talking about it in a sort of recycled sort of way, that souls are going, like in and out of a process, that makes a lot of sense. But,
Well, and again, I mean, it like you said about the energy of the universe kind of being screwy. I mean, it would kind of answer some questions about, at least in my mind, things like tarot and astrology, things that, again, like they're not sciences, but when you put enough of the data together regarding things like astrology, their patterns do form.
It starts to adds up. Yeah.
Yeah, patterns do form. And again, like that's not me saying this for hyperbolic effect. There have been plenty of studies shown that somehow energy is affecting, again, maybe we're affecting it. We don't know. Even if we are, we're not able to control it in any substantive way other than the power of positive thinking, which
and manifestation and,
but I believe all of that, as I know you do. Like,
yeah. And acknowledgement. If you know what the cards are telling you, you can. The way I read, my tarot cards, and I am by no means like a person who considers themselves any sort of like psychic or medium or very spiritual person to begin with. It's something that is a little new to me. But with the cards, like I just look at, whatever the readings are, they're very much like it's an outline and it's like a warning, like to things like, and lately, in the last few months with a lot of like shit that's been happening in my life, the cards make a lot of damn sense. And it's kind of hard to deny it at points where it's like, that is right on the fucking nose. And I take most of my cards as like they're warnings, right? Like this, if you continue on these paths of this thinking or this doing or whatever, this is kind of how you could end up, where, these results are going to lead.
Well, see, you know Emma, right? She's one of the hosts of this show with you and I. And a couple of years ago, we found out last night we were recording. It was August of 2021. You had a tarot reading done by Emma's former podcast co-host over at Strange Beliefs, Arthur, who is a practicing witch. And those tarot cards kind of sent you further down the path that you were going on. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I think about that often.
A major sense of overwhelm in life with a lot of things. And they were like, hey, you need to like chill the fuck out. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I do. And it was right. I did. And they're still right. I still do. It's just in other aspects of my life.
That's fair. It always cracks me up because it was like the tarot card reading came and then you took your like year-long sabbatical for your like mental and personal health. And it's like, I just always remember those tarot cards were not wrong.
And in that year, I did a lot of self-work and changing and a lot of things in my life that made major changes in my life.
Right. And again, like to
get to where I am now as a person, which is much, for all intents and purposes, regardless of some, life changes beyond my control, I am a much happier version of myself. I'm a much more authentic version of myself because I took that time to like really be like, okay, hey, who are you? What do you need out of life? What are you looking for right now?
Right. But I always wonder, you think you would have still gotten there without the tarot cards, or was that like just one further drop in the bucket?
I think I would have gotten there eventually. I think it would have taken me a bit longer though. Like, I think I would have tried to push like through it more like, no, you're just, I would have talked myself out of it. Like, you're just being, it's like, chill out. You're fine. Just keep on going. Like, it's whatever. But I think like that was just kind of like, oh, okay.
Right.
That's what I've been thinking. It's kind of being told to me crystal clear right now. All right, fine. I'll give this a whirl and start listening to it, a little bit, and I'm not saying like I don't live and die by my cards, right? Like,
right. No, I know you don't.
I don't pull the hermit card and be like, well, I can never go outside until I get the hermit, reversed.
Right. But you also are cognizant of the power of these kinds of things, which to me is the important part.
The power of persuasion is also there, right?
Well, yeah, but nobody was persuading you to do what you did, right?
No, it was already in my mind, and that was just a sign, effectively a sign, right? Like people are always looking for a sign to do, like to push them into a decision that they want, that they know ultimately will be a good thing that they should do for themselves, but will result in a major, major abrupt change in their current life. And that's the scary part. It's because, the future is whatever. We don't know what the future is right now, but we know what the right now is right now. and I have to live through the right now. So
Right. Well, and like we've been saying, I mean, I think that souls are tapping into that similar energy that astrology and tarot are, where it's connecting with some sort of energy that either the universe is putting out or you're putting out or the universe is receiving from you. And I mean, things like tarot and astrology, I think in my mind are not like examples of proving it, but interesting things to bring up in a conversation like this one when you're having a conversation about souls.
right.
Which again could just be our energy, and the energy of the universe interacts with us in interesting and fun ways. Again, maybe that's, I don't know. I don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So that's why we sit here and theorize.
Pontificate.
Yeah. Well, depends on the person if it's pontificating. Sometimes it is pontificating. That's okay. So we went all over the place on that one.
Yeah, we really did. From like warrior night marches to what does it mean to have a soul?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you have?
It's got some. I just. Oh boy. Well, I don't have anything as good as that. Let me put it that way. Well, maybe I do. Who knows? So I have a Bigfoot. What a surprise! Everybody says it's a Bigfoot adjacent.
In a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, right. That would be pretty good. So I kind of have two because I couldn't find a lot of information about one, and the other one I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a cop out because again, like it's going to be the thing that I think if you know anything about Hawaii, you're going to have heard of before. But I want to mention this again. It's kind of Bigfoot adjacent. I don't think there doesn't seem to be a Bigfoot. I did find people talking about a movie called The Maui Skunk Ape, which doesn't actually have anything to do with a real Bigfoot. It's just them using something that we've talked about before, the skunk ape, which I believe is Florida? Is that Florida, yeah. Louisiana, right? Somewhere very coastal.
Yeah.
But the thing I wanted to mention, the only Bigfoot adjacent thing that I could find was Kanika, which is it's kind of part of Hawaiian mythology. And the name means eater of men or man eater. And he marries one of the goddesses, and then they have children together, and they're kind of demigod children. But that's not, I mean, again, like it was unfortunate is like all I could find is a brief Wikipedia entry. And then I went and looked elsewhere, and it was just not much of anything because again, the one thing that you can find when you search about Hawaii is the thing that I more or less associate with Hawaii because of Trader Vic's, because Trader Vic's has more or less elevated this mythological creature pretty high. If you know what Trader Vic's is a tiki bar. It's the original tiki bar in a lot of ways that was out in the original ones across the Bay Bridge from San Francisco. And so they have a mascot that they use for Trader Vic's, and the mascot is the Menehune. The Menehune are dwarf people. They are the hobbits of the Hawaiian Islands. And they are supposedly, I mean, again, they literally sound like hobbits. You know, when we think about Lord of the Rings, we think about hobbits, you know, hanging out and, you know, building and crafting things and eating, but not, again, they're not like a warring people. And the Menehune are kind of similar. So they built temples and all kinds of stuff, and they were farmers and fishermen, and they would only come out at night. And they would build their masterpieces at night because they would also, again, they were craftsmen. So they would like craft things in the night for the Hawaiian people, but only at night. So it's like, it's interesting. It's trading on like several kinds of things. At times, again, we're kind of talking about like forest people, pygmies. I mean, again, I don't think pygmies is the right word, but dwarf people. We're trading on like hobbit adjacent stuff. But then we're also talking like what I would consider to be elf tradition, like tradition of like, you know, like they come at night and they come in through the window and they cobble your shoes type thing.
The convenience.
I mean, hey, but that for me is like the Menehune is just this weird little mascot that at Trader Vic's, it's on the end of the swizzle stick that they give you in your drink. Like the Menehune is the mascot, but apparently, and again, this is again, a piece of information that to throw it out there, if we didn't, we might not really be doing our jobs very well. There is a theory put forward by a folklorist named Catherine Lumala who says maybe the term Menehune is, I don't know, it was maybe being just, it's a post contact thing. And so post contact with Europeans. So,
so maybe it was a tribe.
Well, it may have been okay. So let's think about it less physically, more status wise. If I say a dwarf person, someone of smaller stature, right? If you take that literally, we're talking like a someone who's short, right? Like a hobbit. Yeah. But think about it metaphorically and figuratively instead. Someone who's you. Right. And so in a lot of ways, there's a possibility that maybe Menehune is a term, and it came from a term it's kind of a bastardized term that the Europeans created from another term, Manahune, that means lowly or lower social status people. See what I'm getting at here? Someone who's shorter than you, but again, not speaking literally, speaking literally, figuratively.
In status, yes. And that, okay. So it's basically the people that they discovered on the islands they were referring to as beneath them, Potentially. Again, again, it's like anything else. It's like the thing you were talking about with the souls, right? And it's again, the night marchers are walking through the night to protect the island. This is a little bit more of kind of a benevolent figures of the island. Like, did they do anything?
Not really. I mean, they build things. So they've supposedly built, structures on Necker Island. They've built structures on several of the Hawaiian islands. There's even a fish pond named Menehune Fish Pond on Kauai. So there are plenty of things that are attributed to them. Again, they're not seen as a negative cryptid. Again, I say cryptid very lightly here because it's at times is this a leprechaun? At times is this an elf? At times is this, what is this? Because again, it draws from a lot of the similar traditions. So I don't want to say cryptid, but it's definitely like a creature. But then the Maori have something similar. And, they have similar things in the Philippines and in the Marianesses as well. So it's not like, and even as far away and in somewhere like Madagascar, they have the Vazimba, which is a similar idea of like the people from the forest or the first inhabitants who are coming and doing things positive for us in the night. I mean, this is, again, we have traditions in this country. I mean, it's talking about, the elves who fix shoes. I mean, that's a thing, so I can't even say cryptid, but I don't even think that I don't even get the sense with all the doing the research that they have ever been seen as violent or aggressive towards people. It's like they do their business and there you go. They don't expect anything in return.
They come in at night, you never see them. They're gone in the morning.
Right. But like, again, if you think about it in a more literal sense and you think about it in a negative direction, I mean, it starts to kind of have
help.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, if you think about, they come in the night, they're not seen. I mean, again, it's thinking about it as these people are, staying away for whatever reason, and we need to ascribe a reason to that is also kind of what it feels like. Because again, I mean, there are sightings of these, but it's not, it's more of a belief, less we're seeing these people. Because again, like if you're talking about the elves that cobble shoes in the night, nobody ever actually sees them. Right. I mean, that's the joke. That's the joke now, did the elves come in the night and do it? Like, I mean, like you've heard it if you have worked.
Or gremlins or whatever.
Right. If you've ever worked in the workplace and something gets done by somebody and nobody else knows who did it.
I don't know. What did elves do it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's weird because the more I looked into it, the less it seemed like an actual thing that exists, but it existed tangibly, but more or less a way to explain certain things that don't have an easily ascribable or attainable explanation within the constructs of 1700 English sailors.
Now that's an interesting question too, that how many, you asked me the question, how many legends, kind of spawn from indigenous peoples based on, the idea of people coming and taking their land from them. How many cryptids and legends were formed on the, Westerners' side based on their just ignorance of the people that they were meeting, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably examples for both. Obviously there are plenty of indigenous people's traditions surrounding Bigfoots in the Pacific Northwest. And Bigfoot existed in the Pacific Northwest long before white man showed up and said, "Oh, what's that guy in the woods out there doing?" But at the same time, like you just said, if you think about it, if you're trying to figure out a way to explain something that you can't explain,
right.
Big hairy guy in the woods, like if you see it from far enough away and you're not able to tell what it is, something walking on two legs really fast with its arms swinging might be maybe some big monster, sure. Or it could just be somebody that you literally can't fathom seeing because you've never had contact.
You've never seen them before, yeah.
Yeah, which I think we as Westerners in a developed nation take for granted, that like there is not really anything that any one of us can see anymore that's like right,
oh my God.
Well, what is
that? I couldn't fathom it. You can fathom everything now.
I was having this conversation with my wife a couple weeks ago, and she was like, "Well, wouldn't it be funny if your brain switched with the dog's brain, like the consciousness switched?" And I was like, "No, because I'm pretty sure the dog would die immediately."
Yeah.
Because like its consciousness would be fucking overloaded by like I genuinely believe if you took someone from the 1900s and set them in this office and had them sit in the corner and watch me do what I'm doing now, talking to you through the magic of the internet, which I am not even sure I understand how the internet works in a lot of ways. Like, I know that someone from a time long before ours would literally be sitting in the corner shaking, like in the fetal position.
Yeah, they'd be freaked the fuck out.
Right. Because like they can't understand this, my computer, let alone my phone, let alone plastic bottles. Like, again, the things we take, right. Like you on the screen.
The way we look, the way like everything's decorated, like just everything about everything.
Right. And again,
would be a sensory overload.
Right. And I'm thinking about that in terms of like our family pet, his consciousness coming into my body and not understanding it. But yeah, like people can't understand it either. And people are like, well, what, how could somebody have seen a whale that thought it was a giant squid, or saw something and thought it was a giant squid? It's like, because at one point in human consciousness, there wasn't fucking Google. You couldn't just take a picture and Google could tell you, or post it on Reddit. We had James Renner on talking about a serval in fucking Akron.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, there was a serval on cocaine in Akron.
Yeah.
Like that makes no sense at all. But yet it happened.
Makes a lot of sense if you're from here.
I've been to Akron. I didn't think that there were giant cats roaming the streets on cocaine, but maybe you didn't take me to the right part.
Not usually, no, but I'm not surprised that there was.
Yeah. It is, as you would say, it is Ohio.
Mm-hmm. People are, every day something weird happens out my window, like especially in the summertime, constantly just weird stuff. I don't know if stuff burns down all the time. Like it's crazy here.
But that's my point. Like your ability to perceive the place that you live and your corner of the world, even sometimes you have a problem with it in this day and age. But I don't think it's anywhere close to what people who are indigenous to our country must have thought seeing someone like Christopher Columbus. Like seeing someone coming towards you from something you can't even comprehend the size of because you thought it was limitless, coming who looks nothing like you, walking up onto the beachfront and going, I'm planting my flag. Yeah. Like I can't begin to even guess at to what the fuck they must have thought. Like, and you know what I mean? And like, in a lot of ways, that's what I think about a lot of these folklore traditions is it is just a very simple, might not be the right way of putting it, but it's a very simple way of explaining things that are beyond complex, but they might not actually.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I would describe a phone to someone. Like, how would you describe this to someone who can't comprehend 35 other things that you need to understand to understand this?
I would need them to have at least existed after Alexander Graham Bell. Like, you understand the concept that you can pick this thing up and talk to somebody who's not here? Okay, great. That's half the battle. Explaining that to anybody else before then is like, oh, what? No, what? I would die. I'd get burned at the fucking stake. They'd kill me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
demon be gone.
That's my point. It's like they would have to understand so many other things to even understand the phone. Like the phone part,
everybody's going to have to get cool with a lot of things really fast.
Right. So why would we be straining ourselves to believe that 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago, people had explanations for things that they just couldn't understand? Because 200 years ago, there were plenty of things happening that people didn't understand. That's just not the case anymore.
I mean, look at all myths, and that was just purely people trying to explain things. Like, why does it rain?
Why does the sun come up?
Why do people die? Why does, famine happen? Why do my crops not grow? Why did, we need answers to them, whether they make sense or not.
Well, and in a lot of ways, the answers that we're looking for are in part so that we can do something to prevent it or counteract it,
yes. or
harness it for our own benefit. I mean,
look, going back to the tarot cards, that's the same thing. You ask the tarot cards for fucking guidance to be like, what can I do about this?
Right. You're asking paper what to do in your life, real, and again, like, if you even think about life and the decisions and ideas that one has to understand to get to the point that we are right now, I implore anybody to sit and look at something in a room that they are in and think about that thing that you're looking at and internalize and be self-aware of the biases, prejudices, and experiences that you have that allow you to form the opinion about the thing that you're looking at, and how drastically different anyone is from you in your ability to perceive or understand the thing that they're looking at, even if it is the same thing you're looking. Like it's crazy to think about, but like it is an interesting thought experiment, because if I say pink pen, we're going to have 3 different variations on what that means. What's our interpretation? What are we expecting? And they're not right or wrong, but they all just come from mass amounts of experience that we don't think about all the time.
Even just little things like this, like I realize this is a podcast format and Chris and I can see each other, but like I have an Elf bar. It's a nicotine thing. Just explaining this thing, this stupid, colorful, candy flavored.
They wouldn't even understand the color of it. Like
the color of it. No, the nicotine aspect. Like I know, like there's like cigarettes and stuff back in the day, but they didn't understand like the nicotine part of it at that point. It's like, yes, I have this weird little electronic thing that I constantly am holding in my hand and just blowing big clouds out of my face with.
Right. Well, like you said,
what the fuck?
You'd be burned at the stake. People were burned at the stake for less. People were burned at the stake because they thought the crops failed because they said something. Like,
yeah. Like, we got to blame somebody. It must have been that person's fault. They were outside after midnight. Clearly, it was them.
Right. Must be a witch. Burn her at the stake. And it's like, what? Yeah, sure, I guess. But
now the benefit would be that they would be in our time period, right? So they'd be on our turf. So fucking try me, bro.
Well, but that's the other thing.
But if I get put back in time, I'm fucked.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you think about, these indigenous cultures interacting with the explorers and, colonizers, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, who had the benefit there? And it's like, well, neither, because the colonizers had technology, but they didn't understand fuck one of the place that they were.
No, the only thing that the colonizers had was disease.
I think people have a hard time understanding
advanced weaponry and disease.
I think people have a hard time understanding 99 or 90% of people dying in a civilization, like because of interacting with colonizers. Like I feel like people in this day and age could not comprehend that.
Mm-mm.
I mean, we know they
like
can.
An entire population of people. Yeah, an entire population of people just almost completely some of them, yes, completely evaporating from existence
because of something nobody can see, something they can't even understand,
because of disease.
Yeah,
because of disease. That was primarily it. Yes, and advanced weaponry, absolutely, guns for sure. Like that was, guns versus hand-to-hand combat is a pretty
spears and shields,
unfair fight. Yeah, I mean, pretty unfair fight. I mean, the only the main thing that traps, yes, like being in not knowing where they are, not understanding the land at all, having no idea of what the topography is going to be, not knowing what to eat off the trees, not knowing, what animals are there, what things are there. Sure, yes. But overall, yeah, they had food that they did bring with them, sure. But they had the weapons and they had the ability that they had, been exposed to all of these other things that these people had not. And because these people were living in a place that was very untouched, they didn't have a lot of disease, right?
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they got sick. Things happened. Like, they got sick. There were things that occurred, but there weren't, smallpox blankets.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, again, we come back to this idea of like the Menehune and these people of the jungle who are, again, maybe this is a way of speaking down to the indigenous people, but at least it's positive and they're craftsmen.
Yes.
I mean, that's it. Like, that's all you can really say if you take the kind of cultural angle and look at it as a possible problematic, but a possibly strange interpretation. Like, at least it's
not the worst thing you could be interpreted as, I guess, right. As from the white man's point of view.
But if you're the lower person, like, it kind of is. Like, again, I don't know.
Well, yes, because, and that was, I mean, let's be real. That could have been referring to anyone, like, at that point. Like, they got there and everyone was beneath them. It wasn't a matter of like, oh, these people over here are actually very, quote unquote, civilized and we like them and we'll get along with them. But these ones over here, not so much. No, it was fuck everybody. We're here. Like,
I mean, I don't know if you know any European people, but I know some older people that live in Europe and they were born in Europe and they are casually racist.
Yeah.
I mean, casually, I mean, it's not even racist. It's more just like Eurocentric still. And like, that's classist. A big, well, I mean, it's more just like Eurocentric. Like they were talking about how they went to China and tried the food and it was like, this is shit food. And it's like, I bet it wasn't. But again, like, it doesn't appeal to the European palate.
It's not the it's not the European, as we would say, the Americanized version. I mean, Americans did this too. I mean, Americans are, the worst of the Europeans. Like, right?
Well, I mean,
we're the bastard children of the Europeans who are like, fuck all your shit.
I mean, the Europeans that look down on other people's cultures look down on Americans just as hard. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Hamburgers and hot dogs, big sodas. Yeah. We get it. Like,
supersize everything. Everybody's fat. Everybody's this. Everybody's, loud and obnoxious. And you know what? I can understand where they see that.
The people that are loud are obnoxious.
Yeah, and they are the ones that are on the news constantly. So I can see, if your only exposure to that is that, well, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we all, it's just the chain reaction of looking your nose down at somebody else.
Yeah.
But it is a very interesting concept to think about how many cryptids and legends can be explained away as purely ignorance of the population at the time of your arrival.
Well, how many of the cryptids are like post-contact? Because that's the thing about the Menehune. It's like, it's a post-contact construct. So it doesn't exist before the Europeans showed up. So
exactly.
it's like that. I mean, it's not one-to-one, but it's not a coincidence either. Like, there is some intent there. So yeah, I would be curious. I mean, that would be an interesting kind of direction to go and look at, is like the amount of cryptids that have been just, what is that? Is that the white man? Like,
yeah.
Like, or is that the indigenous
like,
people?
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Yeah. Well, and again, like you said, I mean, the indigenous cultures have a long, rich history. So there's no way they don't have some of them don't have something. So
right.
Hawaii seems like an interesting place, but it seems very culturally unique compared to the continental United States. Like, I was trying to think of a state in the country that has a similar feel, and maybe it's like North or South Dakota or Oklahoma, where it's a large indigenous population still exists.
Yeah.
But like, even then, it's
in
like
a very different way.
Right.
Like this different way.
This feels like so much more hands off. Maybe it really isn't, but like, it seems like it is.
It does. It does, because it's not connected to here, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah. It's part of Oceania.
What is the majority population of Hawaii? Like, ethnicity. Like,
white,
because it's not a majority Caucasian place, I don't believe.
Do you want to guess what the percentage are Asian/Pacific Islanders? Or 2020?
I'm going to say 56%.
45.
I was close.
That's a lot.
Yeah. What is the
21
white people?
for white. Yep. And then the third highest ethnic group is 10% are Hispanic.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it's the most of the continental United States is very white or, very white people influenced. Let's say that. Let's say, white people influenced, because there are states in the continental United States that are not a majority white, but still have very similar, that they still feel like they're very white places culturally.
Right. Yeah.
But Hawaii, it's not connected to here. It's not connected. It's not, it is an expensive place to live. It is an out of reach place to go for a lot of, people that, live in certain parts of the United States.
Myself, yourself included, getting to Hawaii is not, it's super fun.
And good. I mean, I'm happy, quite honestly. Great. Honestly, keep white people hands off shit. Like,
it's hard to get there. I mean, it's more expensive to go to Hawaii than it is to go to like other countries. Now, you can fly to London cheaper than you can fly to Hawaii,
which is mind blowing.
It's like $500 round trip to go to.
And then the amount of places you can go from London so easily.
Right.
And cheaply.
Right. Like I have a friend who lives in the UK. We do a couple podcasts together, and it was like $550 round trip to get out there. It's like, that's like nothing. It's like $1,200 round trip to go to Hawaii. It's not a joke. It's so expensive.
Well, because it's also like exclusively a tourist, like not exclusively, but the entirety of it is a tourist destination, right? There are specific parts of Europe that are tourist destinations, but there are other parts of Europe that aren't,
right.
Just like there's parts of the continental United States that are tourist destinations, like California and Florida, but not Ohio, not Nebraska. Like nobody's coming here unless it's to visit people who already live here. But it's not to just have a good time out in Ohio or Nebraska.
But we did have a good time, and you will have a good time when you come visit. But exactly. I agree with you. Like,
but it's also only parts of Florida and parts of California, right? Like, not the entirety of California is a tourist destination. All of Hawaii is a tourist destination. Any place in Hawaii is a place people want to go.
Right.
Like, there's no part of Hawaii where people are like, that place sucks. Like,
well, and the other
Sacramento.
And the other thing is, I mean, I think people also tend to forget how far away it is. Mm-hmm. It's pretty far away. I mean, it's part of Oceania. It's closer to Australia than it is the United States. I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah.
It's in the middle of the ocean.
And it's hot. It would be so nice. I want to go so bad.
It sounds like it would be fun. Like it feels like it would be a fun place. But again, it strikes me in a lot of ways as to like going to an all expenses paid resort in Mexico. But this is like that X10 where it's like, you're going to go to Hawaii. It's not unsafe to go out. I mean, I don't think it's unsafe in Mexico
anywhere.
Either. Yeah. But like Hawaii, I mean, again, like we've said, like they want tourists to come. That's tourism is the big industry.
They make their money. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, they're a harbor town, man. Like, I mean, that's what that is. It's a seaside town where
they don't
money's coming in.
Yeah.
But it has the benefit of it being beautiful and sunny all the time, as opposed to just during the summertime, like when, people go to Florida or, well, not Florida, but like Atlantic City and shit like that, where it's like, it's tourist season. We got to get them in and out because we only have these 3 months. So it's like, no, all year round is tourist season in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Come on out.
Well, that's why it's never cheap, because it's right. Like there's not a cheap time to go to Hawaii because people are always going to Hawaii. There's not a bad time
in Hawaii is what we've decided here. Like,
I mean, because again, you and I both work in the entertainment industry, either directly or indirectly. And I know plenty of people that is like the place that they go. That is where they go for months at a time. Someone I used to work with went to Hawaii for a month and a half. Like, that's not cheap. Like,
no.
But
I bet it's fucking worth it.
Right. But I also listen to stories. I also listen to stories about people talking about how we would go to Hawaii all the time. And it's like, it's like you said, in a lot of ways, Hawaii reminds me of like Las Vegas, where it's like, you're going there for the thing, which is the relaxing on the beach and living like a king in a lot of ways, as much as you can afford to do it. Like, I would love to go to Hawaii.
Eating at the luau's,
right,
and doing all the things.
I would love to go to Hawaii and do none of that bullshit and just go and like see like indigenous
like the things
food.
That people who do.
Yeah, the people who live there do. Like, I don't want to just sit at the resort the whole time. But I also
I'll go to the beach.
But there are plenty of places I can do that in the continental United States and live like a local and not get my bank account completely drained.
Yes. But man, those views.
I know. And the palm trees and the jungle and the volcanoes. The
crystal blue water.
Yep.
The white sand. There's a reason Corey and Topanga didn't come back from their honeymoon.
Yeah. The night marchers.
The night marchers.
Menehune. I mean, look.
Menehune.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, if it weren't so expensive.
Even their spirits don't seem that, upsetting. Like, I'll just not look the night marcher in the eye. That's fine. I got it.
Right. I'm cool with you, dude. I ain't no colonizer.
Got you.
I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a colonizer. Nope. Yeah.
I do your thing. I just want to sit on the beach, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. God, that does sound pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That'd be so fantastic.
Yeah.
One day we'll go to Hawaii. We'll podcast from Hawaii.
Hey, we're finally here podcasting from Hawaii. I mean, that's just the other thing.
The beach directly.
Like, I don't know if I don't think I'd want to live in Hawaii because it's so expensive too.
You know what? Well, that is a good reason, but the real reason why I wouldn't want to live in Hawaii or quite frankly, any really, really beautiful, beautiful place is because eventually you live there. And it just becomes another place. Like it just
But what if it doesn't?
You don't.
But what if it doesn't?
Maybe it doesn't. That's great.
It ain't Akron. It isn't Akron though.
Yeah, there's nothing nice about Akron to begin with.
That's fair.
But you know what I mean? Like it would be normal. Like the palm trees would become, and I realize palm trees, I can get in Florida and California and various other places. But like, the volcano views and all those like cool things would eventually just become stuff. Like, like people who live in New York City, like people who live in New York City don't look at New York City like like people who live in Ohio look at New York City, right? Like they are there and they're pissed off every fucking day because the traffic is bad and everything's expensive and all this stuff. And I just, there are some places, there's not a lot of magic left in this world, Chris. And if I can maintain just this little magic island in my mind and I can just visit it every now and then, where it is this paradise that doesn't change and is this beautiful place and I can, have it there. That'd be great.
I'm with you.
And it would be expensive as shit.
Yeah. The fact that the food is
the undesirable places are starting to become expensive as shit too. So
yeah, that's fair. Look, ultimately at the end of the day, it's a very unique state that exists. I would say, no pun intended, exists as an island unto itself, obviously.
Yep.
So
we should dip into some true crimes in Hollywood, in Hawaii.
I wonder what they probably have all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Stay tuned. Let's break the magic of Hawaii. I just talked about
people getting murdered and sliced up. All right. Well, I'm not going to Hawaii. To be fair, though, you live in Ohio, and one of the most desirable places to live in this country is California, the other state with all the serial killers. So
yes. So I can just, at least I got sunshine with the other serial killers here. It's all fucking cloudy.
That's fair. So Jess, when you and I are talking about haunted states, where can people find you kicking around on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at WriterJessFired. Pretty much everything I do ends up there. I have photography accounts and things linked. You can check that out. You can also find me on other various podcasts with Chris, such as episodes of the Culture Cast, episodes of the Bollywood Cinema Club, episodes of our other shows, the one season show. And yeah, what about you, Chris?
WeirdingWayMedia.com is where you can find every single one of the shows that Jess just mentioned and plenty more, including but not limited to Twisted and Uncorked, two women that are much funnier than me, which It's not hard. 80s TV ladies, two women who talk about what do you know? TV from the 80s featuring ladies. And always the one and only Mike White's The Projection Booth, a podcast that's as entertaining as it is educational. As for this show, ScaryStoriesWeTell.com, Scary Stories WT on social media. That shit sucks though, and nobody likes using it, myself included. As for this show, Maggie the Odd and Dustin Rutledge do the album artwork. Big thanks to them as always. You can find Maggie's work over at dolanmuseum.com. As for Alex Malnack, he does the music for the Culture, not for the Culture Cast. He does the music for Scary Stories We Tell, and you can find his music over on Spotify. Just search Blondo. But if you're in the Midwest, you could probably find him kicking around to your town on tour because, as musicians like to do, he likes to go out and play music live. Who'd have thunk it?
Wow, we can do that again,
right?
Okay, I guess.
Yeah, right. If you were into it before, I was never really into it before, but I'm glad that it's back. It's back, folks. So, and yeah, we'll let our good friend, the former host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.